Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, whatever the time that you're listening to this. And welcome to this podcast and to this episode. I wanted to start with a very personal note first, which is kind of a funny one. You know how we always look upon people that are experts in a certain topic and they seem to have it so well figured out, they seem to know about it, they seem to master the theme, and we never know what the experience behind that, right? We only see a facade, we only see the projections that we make of them, but we never know about their emotional experience. And I think it's really funny how recording this episode is a perfect example of it. Because, as you know it, I'm talking about emotional intelligence. I'm training people to grow the courage of emotions, to grow through fear, through anxiety, through stress, which is just part of our daily life. I'm training people on that topic, I'm super aware of it, and yet here I am, scared as to just record this first episode because I'm gonna be fully honest. I had written this episode for you. I mean, I like to write, it's easy for me to write, and I kind of channel things when I write. So I wrote all of what I wanted to share with you in this first episode on emotional intelligence, I think a few months ago. And I was telling to myself, yeah, you're gonna record it, you're gonna record it. And then time passed and I didn't do it. I was just like postponing the thing, telling to myself that it was okay, but hey, it was just not okay. I was just postponing it because it's an important step for me. It's a first one, it's a mono talk, like a solo talk, which is quite vulnerable. I'm going to be sharing about my experience, my life, just putting on light things that I have noticed about myself, just to share that with you so that it can maybe spark something in you. But this long story short, just to tell you, we're all humans. We all have those fears, we all postpone things, we all kind of sabotage ourselves. Just a question of how much do we know about it, how much do we know about ourselves, and how can we go through it, which basically is the courage of emotions. So, well, here I am celebrating with you the recording of this first episode, and I hope that you're gonna enjoy it. Welcome to the Human Technology and Heart Intelligence Show. My name is Vanessa. I am a leader, trainer, artist, and healer with one mission: reconnecting humans with the deep power they have inside, to the inner intelligence that has always been there, but that we never learned how to use. I believe in growing conscious for ourselves, for happier relationships, and for the children we will leave behind. I'm honored to serve you today and share with you practical tools to grow the courage of your emotions, real leadership, the intelligence of your heart, and meditative journeys. You are unique and you make a difference. So welcome and enjoy. And yeah, I'm really excited to start this podcast and share with you the knowledge, the tools, the inspiration that makes us who we are, humans. And emotions clearly are one of the main topics when it comes to that. Emotional intelligence is one that is very special to me. And in this episode, I wanted to share with you the path and realization that I made about emotional intelligence and how emotions are everywhere. And being human is an adventure, like for real. Think about it. It's just a daily roller coaster. First, we think we know who we are, we tell ourselves certain stories, we react a certain way. Then, alongside the path, we become a little more self-aware, we start to question things. And I'm sure that that has happened to you many times. That must not be something new. Questions like, why am I even doing that? Or is it just because I've been used to do it? Is it still serving me? Is it actually what I want to do? Or why do I keep leaving certain situations at work, in love relationships, with friends, and the stuckness that can come with it, the doubts, where to go, all those questions, they're just part of our daily human experience, and every time they come with some emotions. They come with a whole emotional experience. That's why it's so important. Another example is think of your identity. Who are you? Who am I really? I'm a mother, I'm an entrepreneur, I am a therapist, I am a friend, I am an artist. The topic of self-awareness and identity is huge. And I believe there really is a reason why we spend a whole human lifetime evolving, changing, questioning, redefining, changing again, when we have the courage to do so. Because let's be honest, it just requires a lot of courage to look at oneself in the mirror, to observe the things that we like about ourselves and say it, and the things that just don't work and that are not who we are and who we want to be. All of that requires so much courage. Living a happy life, fulfilled and at peace, that is mainly a path from the inside. You can say whatever you want to, that, yeah, of course, material helps, money helps, being surrounded by good friends help. But if you're not at peace with who you really are, all the money in the world will still make you feel empty. All the presence in the world of fake friends, empty friends, just the quantity over the quality, will still make you feel empty. It will still leave you with a question, do those people really see me? Self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and your sense of identity, they really make a living triangle of being, of who you are. And in that part, there is one in particular that is so needed now, more than ever. We talk about AI, but we don't talk about the human intelligence. And a big part of, what I'm sharing in it is emotional intelligence. It is such a huge part of that triangle of defining yourself and knowing yourself. And honestly, the world is a really, really special place to live right now. There is so much noise outside, so much information. Think of social media, think of just noise, information, so much distraction, so much influence. So many people that share their stories, their beliefs on social media, which, don't take me wrong, it's very positive. It's amazing that the change that has occurred in the way of communicating, but at the same time, it's one of the most confusing places to live when you don't have an emotional compass that is really well developed inside you. And that is essential for us adults. And God knows that can be really hard because we have not been taught that. We have not learned that in school or from our parents, and there is nothing wrong with it. It's just generational. It was not the standard in previous generations and in previous education. And because we have not been taught that, sometimes it's easier to rely on what we know, and our brain loves certainty. It loves to stick in what it knows. We're going to talk about that in next episodes. It's easier to rely on what you know than to learn something you don't know, and that could ask you to face yourself. And your emotional knowledge is one of those topics. It comes with a lot of uncertainty. It comes with a lot of newness. It comes with a lot of thinking or feeling outside the box. It requires a lot of courage to desire to grow that intelligence in you. But somehow there is just no way out. You have to go inside. You can avoid knowing yourself and your emotional world, but do you really think that you're going to feel fulfilled the day that you die? Or transcend? I mean, that's a question of vocabulary and you use the word that serves you. But is it really the world that you want to live in? That you want to leave our children in? I mean, I don't have children yet, but yeah, I really do believe in leaving the world in a better place and contributing to something good. helping evolve through our own evolution. And the thing is, emotions are everywhere. Literally everywhere. It makes me smile now when I hear the sentences, "Don't get so emotional," or "I'm not an emotional person." But let's be double honest here, it's super scary to feel it all, and most of the time, because we just don't know what to do with it, we don't know what we feel, and we don't know what to do with it. Or because we're afraid of what others might think if we don't get it straight, if we don't know like very clearly and logically what is happening to us. Or because we are afraid to feel weak if we speak emotions, or to be seen as weak. Or because we just don't even want to imagine that the people we love might react in a way that makes us feel like it's not important, that we are not important, that our feelings are not important, or even worse, that it's bullshit. And that's because all we want and need is to feel seen. Because we all, you, I, our neighbor, everybody wants and needs to belong to whatever you define as your group, community, circle. It's part of our human experience, and that belonging, feeling seen, is a whole emotional experience again. And because we want to feel seen and to belong, we are afraid to not fit in. And we live in a world where emotions are not yet considered as much as they should. See the circle? We are super afraid to not fit in, and at the same time, we can't be authentically ourselves. Take a second and think about it. Think about it just for yourself. With who in your surroundings do you feel seen? Who or what makes you feel that you belong? Because when you feel seen, it can give you that courage and that energy. It can just lead you anywhere. When people feel seen, it can lead to the most magical outcomes. Again, emotions are everywhere. So, as a long intro, but for this first episode, this first solo talk, I felt like sharing with you my own experience to give you a wider picture of what I mean with emotions are everywhere. And I want to play a game here. I want to bet a cappuccino or a mochaccino or a matcha if you want to, that's a little more fancy, with you that there is at least one of those examples where you're going to recognize yourself. If that's not the case, please feel free to write in the comments and I will owe you a cappuccino or a matcha if you're fancy, or a mate. Let's get wild. Let's just play a game around it. But yeah, my story with emotional intelligence was really not straightforward. It was not an evidence at all. It kind of hit me one day like pure enlightenment, and I was like, what? Was it really about that topic all the time? It's kind of 3 different areas in my life, 3 different paths that were deeply connected to emotions, and I just didn't know about it. I was in it and could not see it with an helicopter view. It's 3 different paths, 3 different dimensions that I have been walking for very long without even knowing it. And at a moment, they just all came together, and the central theme was that one. It was emotional intelligence. So yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Vanessa. I'm 36 years old and a half, almost 37. Yeah, I don't know why I'm counting those months. I was born in Belgium and I worked in the corporate for a long time. Started with the marketing. I was super passionate about what makes people so attached to a brand. What makes them trust a brand? What makes them buy that brand and not another? Of course, price, quality, personal preferences, and fit, but beyond that, what makes people choose one brand and not another? that was something that I was just super passionate about. I was reading things, I just loved being immersed with that. It was really making me alive. I just loved it. And I got to understand that it was about the coherence, the consistency, the emotional experience, the reliability, the coherence that makes you trust, the feeling of trust, the one that makes you take a step that you would never have taken otherwise. That was the brand experience. That was what makes people stick with a brand. And to be even more concrete about that, I was always passionate about luxury brands. Not about the tag, like honestly, I never cared about Christian Dior or Chanel, or it's really not about the tag, but about the attention to the details that those brands bring in so much importance. The feeling they give you, making people feel important the moment that they step in the shop. They make them feel seen. They make them feel cared for. The service, the excellence. And that just makes people spend a whole lot of money just because they are cared for, they feel seen, and they feel like they belong to something. Yeah, that is basically what made them pay 10 times the same amount for a bag than for any other brand. Basically, branding. That was the first dimension of my life where I realized that I really had that very special link with emotional experiences, with emotional intelligence. I worked in the watches industry, the luxury watches industry, for 5 years. And same, again, think about the story of a brand. As a brand manager, we were just putting so much emphasis on the storytelling, the story of a brand and how people could relate to it. And I swear, people were just buying watches just for the story behind it, just for what that story, that watch was telling and how they could relate to it. For men, I was working for a men's watch brand. The watch is a very emotional thing. It's the only personality jewel that they can have, or it's linked to a very emotional moment in their life, like a wedding or something like that. So yeah, branding, marketing, and that whole emotional experience was really the first dimension of me realizing how emotions were impacting just life much deeper than I would ever have thought. In that same corporate experience came also another part that was deeply, deeply linked to emotional intelligence, and you might relate to that. But think of leadership. Think of sales. Just being a good salesperson. Some people are really good at closing, like fast sales, and they have that good talk. I can tell you, I'm not that person. I'm not so good at closing, but I was really good at gaining people's trust and working on the long term, building something super solid on the long term. That is basically what I did with my clients in all the different areas that I was working with. Came another example, clothing retail. I also work for a premium clothing brand, so in the retail sector. And when I started there, I was way younger than my own teens. I was 28 when I entered there. And I can tell you, when I came in as a manager, as a retail director, they would just test me. They were so reluctant. Just think about it. Most of the shop managers were in that role, were in that position since 5, 6, or even 10 years. So they kind of knew what they were doing. So imagine them much older, much more experienced in that sector since a long time, just having a new boss, manager, call it whatever you want to, much younger, not coming from the sector and coming to basically be in the position to tell them what they have to do. Like, how awkward that was for me. They were so reluctant. I could just see it. How during my first visits, they would just test me. They would show me what they know, and especially show me what I didn't know, and just put that emphasis on, hey, look who I am, look who you're talking to. Look, you don't know about that, but I know about my own shop and I know better than you. It was just a whole experience. In the old way of managing, I think 10, 20 years ago, people were just using a lot of authority or verticality, imposing their management, imposing their direction, and basically telling their teams that they just have to follow and that's the way. That was totally not my way. I would just naturally, so that was not planned, that was not known for me, but naturally, I would just recognize them in their knowledge. Say what I didn't know, I was not afraid to say what I didn't know, and be together with them in that. I would always give them a very clear direction on where we were going as a company, as a brand, and also what I could bring to them. But I would make them feel like we were together in it. It was not me versus them or the chief versus the teams. Because that was also really how I felt. I wanted to give them their own place, their importance, but also grow a sense of responsibility in them, of decision making, of responsibility, and not only delegating decision making to the boss and delegating all their power to the boss. That just didn't make any sense for me. So yeah, leadership, coming back to the corporate with the marketing, leadership also is an emotional adventure. I wanted to be recognized, of course, but strength and authority and imposing it would never have worked. On the opposite, closeness, trust, was only brought with time, so it required so much patience and consistency from my side and being side by side with them, listening to them, and putting boundaries when some things were a yes or a no. Definitely, business is an emotional adventure. And I could talk to you for hours about entrepreneurship, which is even another dimension about it. And I could talk to you for hours about leadership, about entrepreneurship, and their deep bonds to emotions. We're surely gonna talk about it much more in the rest of the podcast. Don't be afraid. We're gonna touch those topics. One of my ex-boyfriends was a super successful entrepreneur, and he was always saying, investors pick people, not ideas. They pick people. They pick people with emotional knowledge, emotional courage, that can go through their fears and just move with consistency. So that is a path that I've been taking without even knowing that emotional intelligence was one of the key game-changing factors that made all the difference for the people and the clients that I was working with. Dimension number one. Second dimension in my personal life that made me connect with emotional intelligence and made me realize that it was all about emotional intelligence, that was the moment that I certified in life coaching. So just to set the picture, I was still working in the corporate. The COVID had happened. I had a first moment of, reconnection to myself. And something came like an evidence. It was that during my corporate career, I always loved to empower others. My clients, my teams. It was always about giving them the tools to strive better. And just right after the COVID and just that pause in the whole world, it hit me. I wanted to get certified in life coaching. So I started that. I had to take days off at work. It was just not so easy. But after a few years after that, when I started to coach, I realized during the coaching that sharing tools on the emotions was way more passionate to me than any other type of usual structure of coaching, defining objectives and taking steps forward with a client. Honestly, I didn't really like the life coaching, but I really loved it when we were entering in some emotional dimension with the clients. That was the dimension number 2 that made me realize afterwards that it was all about emotional intelligence. And then came part 3, which is a much more personal one, and this might resonate to some of you, especially in these times. So this personal path is about hypersensitivity. My brain works in a hypersensitive way, and hypersensitivity basically is more connections in your brain that make you sense things more. So for some people, it might be about hearing differently, feeling differently, sensing differently. You can think about clairvoyance, clairsentience, different ways of being hypersensitive. And for me, since I was a child, I was really, really, really good at getting the emotional world of others. And I was deeply, deeply sensitive to love. I just could express it more, I could feel it more. It was just who I was. And because nobody could see that and give it its value, as a very hypersensitive child, I started to over-adapt to what I would think the others were expecting of me. What my parents would expect of me, or at least how I would interpret or perceive and experience their expectations. Being the good girl, the first at school, never saying anything, never being angry, never feel anger. That was just my experience with emotions. That hypersensitivity, that hyper capability of capturing, understanding, and experiencing the emotional world of others, that also came with that over adaptation. And I'm not here to blame anything about my parents. I mean, if you believe somehow that you chose your own path when coming here on earth, I chose them. I chose my mother as being my mother with her skills and weaknesses, my dad with his skills and weaknesses, myself with skills and weaknesses. It's also generational. Our parents have not been equipped with emotional intelligence. That was not a priority, that was not trendy, that was just not something that they would talk about. But a child, and myself, a child would do everything for the love of its parents. And in my case, it meant over-adapting and just not even know who I was, what I really felt, what I really wanted, and not what the others would want. And I'm sure that this is a topic that will resonate with many of us, is somehow that pleasing, that adaptation to others that comes with a certain sensitivity, that comes with a certain not only empathy, but a sense of deep connection with others. It is a superpower, but at the same time, when you don't have the tools, it can just destroy your own experience of yourself. There are so many questions that are hard to understand when you are hypersensitive. How do I really feel, for example? I always wanted to soothe the other person when they were angry, disappointed, and sad. And I was just deeply, deeply disconnected from what my own emotional experience was. And don't get me wrong, it's not that my experience would be more important than theirs. It's not about invalidating their experience to give more space to mine, not about that. It's just about giving the same importance to our emotional life, to my emotional life in this case, than the importance that we give to the emotions that our loved ones are experiencing. And when you're hypersensitive, you are so wired and sensitive to what others live that you just have no clue at all. I mean, that can happen. I had just no clue at all of who I was, what I was feeling, what was okay for me or not okay for me. And this can continue for a very, very, very long time until it hits hard. Until your own experience, the day it hit me is the day that my experience was so opposite to who I really was that I just hit a bottom and I woke up I had to wake up. And that is where it started. The path of getting to know myself. For you, it might be the path of getting to know who you are, what you like, what you don't like. It might seem basic, but I swear, when you are over adapting during your whole life, you just don't even know what you like and what you don't like. And then only starts the validation. You can't validate yourself if you don't know who you are and what you're living. You can't build a sense of confidence, of self-confidence, if you don't know who you are and what you are living. So yeah, emotional intelligence is a topic that is just imprinted in so many dimensions of our life. And that intelligence, many times I'm asked, what is it? It's a nice word, it looks good, when we hear it, it feels good, but what is it? It is a set of tools. It's that intelligence of you with yourself, self-awareness, that's called intrapersonal intelligence, as named by Daniel Goleman. And it's also the intelligence of you in connection with others, interpersonal intelligence. It's really a matrix with those two sides. And basically, when you take a test to evaluate your emotional quotient, like EQ instead of IQ, they will evaluate your capacity to identify your own emotions and the one of others, to understand them. Understanding means to understand what causes them and what are the consequences of living certain emotions. Just those two dimensions, identifying emotions and understanding them, if you take a moment now to observe yourself, you're going to start to observe patterns. You have those loops of things that are repeated, certain situations that cause certain emotions that themselves have certain consequences in your life. And that might be very positive, uplifting, or negative and bringing you down. I get a lot of motivation when I feel inspired. And although I love well-being and conscious living, I feel super inspired when we're talking about technology, innovation, just new stuff like that, entrepreneurship, startup ideas, the whole tech world. I'm living in Puerto Escondido, that is kind of a well-being hub. And although that part of myself was really happy here, I realized that I needed that technology part. I needed to be around people from the startup world, from the entrepreneurial world, from just crazy innovations, technology-wise, artificial intelligence-wise, just those things. So if I wanted to feel more motivated, because that inspiration also brought a whole lot of motivation in my life, maybe I needed to bring some more inspiration in my life. It really made me realize I needed myself to set it up in my life and either read about it, either surround myself from people from that world, in order to provoke in me some more motivation for my own projects. And in such a case, the emotion is just a signal of, hey, I need more of this in my life. Or on the opposite, hey, maybe it's time to change a few things. That is the understanding of emotions. And see how deep you can go with self-knowledge and just creating a whole life as you wish to and as you dream to, just by knowing those two things. It is super powerful. And I'll dig deeper into that in the next episodes. Stay tuned for it. But yeah, coming back to what emotional intelligence is, I mentioned the identification, the understanding. It's also about the expression of emotion, how you talk about your own emotional experience. Can you talk about it? How do you express it? I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks about that later. Then you have regulation. Regulating emotions is the big game changer in this world. What do you do? How do you react to it when you start to feel the deep uncomfort of fear, for example? What do you do and how do you react or respond when you start to feel doubts? Do you distract yourself so that you don't have to feel that? Do you eat, go on social media, call a friend, go out, do something? Or do you stay in there, looking straight in the eyes of the emotion and trying to understand what it has to tell you? That is the base of emotional regulation. And it is hard, it's really not easy. Believe me, we all go through that. The doubts, they don't have to be existential. It can be as subtle as, do I dare to say now what I want to say? Or maybe I shouldn't say it. Maybe it's not appropriate. Just those doubts, those little doubts, very subtle, that are in our daily life all the time. Or the fear when you do something new, when you need to take a decision but you have no idea if it will be received well, if it will have positive consequences. You are not sure that it will be the right decision. You fear the consequences being wrong, or maybe even fearing that you're going to be right and it's going to be a huge success. And by the way, about fear of success, if that is a topic that you would like to hear more about, please mention it in the comments. And just by the way, any topic that you would like us to explore together, just write it down in the comments and I'll make sure that we can talk about it or share about it in the next episodes. So yeah, coming back to the definition of emotional intelligence, there is a last part that is the part of management of emotions. Do you consciously choose to add more of the things that make you feel good in your life? Really consciously and purposeful. Do you consciously choose an act to remove or change the things that limit you? That is the management of emotions. And those 5 dimensions, they are the ABC of your emotional world. In the corporate, in your relationships, with yourself, in the professional setting, which will be a coach or just a person, a friend, in any setting, it is just crucial to get to grow and to understand and to work with those five dimensions with yourself, and also in what they mean in your relationship with others. To be honest, that emotional language is a whole learning. It's like learning a new language for yourself. It's like learning Russian. It's like learning French for the ones who don't speak French. It takes time, but at the same time, there is so much more inside you than what you think there is. There is just a jewel inside of you that is waiting to come out. And when you surround it with some love, when you surround it with some trust, when you have the courage to look inside yourself, the gold that you're gonna find is just infinite. It's beautiful. It's just the awareness that we're living an emotional life every single day, and that is the real intelligence. Just like the IQ is a form of intelligence, the EQ, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, is a form of intelligence. Just like sports champions, they have a deep and a very strong body intelligence. Architects, they have a space intelligence. Farmers, they have nature intelligence. Well, humans, you, naturally have an emotional intelligence inside. It just needs to be recognized, to be seen, to be loved, and to be nurtured. And you have no idea how far it can get you and how beautiful life is. Challenging sometimes, but also beautiful when you start to look at it that way. Emotions are just parts of you, of us as humans. And in the end, you have 2 choices. Either you decide to own your story, to own your emotional world, and to act upon it and to start creating what you want based on it. Either you choose and decide that it owns you and you become just the follower of something that is not really your own life. So my question to you is, what is your heart telling you right now? Is it telling you, hey, let's have a look inside there? I think you know the answer. And good news is you don't have to do it alone. We are here and we do it all together. The key is just to start. If you have enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me to have your support. If you leave a 5-star review to the show, this will take a few seconds. And if you leave a few words in comment, it will only take 30 seconds, and I would love to hear what you liked about it, but also what you want to hear in the next episodes. Your support really goes a long way, and it helps me contribute to share my message, help you on your own path, and make this world a better place. Share it today with a person who might need to hear it, and thank you again for being here with me today. See you soon.